Welcome to a Drive and Dish NBA podcast. That was the craziest intro ever. Sorry, anybody on the podcast and anybody watching the video, we're going to edit it out, but that was wild. I was like, that was not the vibe I thought that video was going to have.
It was like Legends of the Hidden Temple or Indiana Jones or something. I felt like we were going on a quest to like find some relic from like ancient Indus Valley civilization in 4000 BC. Not talk about hoops.
That was odd. That was definitely a different vibe, and we apologize.
Incredible.
That was a different vibe than what we were going for, but either way, we are here, and we always start the Drive and Dish NBA telling you what we're going to talk about. Obviously, we're going to get into the finals talks, some Suns, Bucks, and get into a little bit of USA Olympic team stuff as well. But I do want to start off with an interesting situation that happened in the NBA this week, and it involves our friend Andre Drummond. And he tweets out or replies to a fan post talking about Drummond and said that he would have, quote unquote, dominated the paint if Frank Vogel had played him more. Mm-hmm. So that led everyone to be like, oh boy, here we go. Even Skip Bayless put out a tweet. And then Drummond comes out and goes, he's just using, or essentially he says he's using the attention to promote his NFT collection, which is the most 2021 thing you could ever say, and that he's dropping it on Friday, which so it's already dropped at this point. And also he has the Kareem Abdul Drummond shirts, which was spun off Skip Bayless's tweet. So he also turned the fact that people were hating on him into a potential money-making move. All of this makes me feel like he said it to say it, right? And then when there was some blowback and he realized it might have been spiraling, he just kind of pushed it to this NFT thing. Or do you think he actually had this planned all along?
No, I have no idea what the hell Andre Drummond is doing. Like, besides tanking his free agency value, because here's a couple of things. The Lakers tried to force Andre Drummond into the starting lineup. It didn't work. He straight up became unplayable come playoff time. And it's always been interesting with Andre Drummond because, he's a multiple-time All-Star. He was a double-double machine on the Pistons. If we're talking fantasy basketball, strictly that perspective, he's incredible. But there was always really that question because he never really played. I mean, they made the playoffs in Detroit, but he had never. Yeah. But that was always as an 8 seed in the East. They never really played significant minutes. And here he comes in on the Lakers. This is the perfect opportunity, and he just flops, to put it bluntly. I mean, he was just the fact that he was unplayable in a playoff series, in a first-round playoff series, is really pretty telling. Especially when the Lakers needed all the big man help we could get. I mean, he was supposed to fill down that and really hold down that role while Anthony Davis was coming back and getting healthy. Instead, I think they definitely need to get Anthony Davis back in the lineup. So besides the fact that it's weird calling out your coach on that front too, the Kareem Abdul Drummond thing is weird. And that's where it's just kind of like, what on earth are you doing? Like, First off, no one should be comparing themselves to Kareem unless you're in that elite all-time talk. And even then, I think it's probably silly. I mean, for me, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is the third best basketball player of all time. So you better be at least a top. I mean, I don't know. It's weird. It's really weird. And I'm like, I don't want to speculate on Andre Drummond's headspace, but I just don't really understand where his agent is at, what is going on right now, because it just seems like a cry for attention, like you said, and then, like you said, the classic back. I guess I'm promoting an NFT is the new, like, I got hacked thing, and where it's just like, I'm running back here to
a great marketing strategy. I mean, geez, man, like if I say something stupid and then I'm going to go, actually, hey guys, I'm just promoting this, or I did this so that I get attention on me to promote my NFT. I mean, artists do it all the time. You'll notice that too, by the way, for anybody that doesn't pay like quote unquote close attention to this, is when an artist is coming out with a new album or an artist is coming out with a song, there's always like a few days before it, something happens that gets them in the news, whether good or bad or something, just random things will happen that gets them talked about, or them themselves will come out and say something that's headline worthy. Ed Sheeran just did it with a song that came out and kind of got himself trending again, and to make sure he had like peak interest in his content that he'd be putting out.
Yeah, I completely understand the NFT thing for artists, for anybody who has something exclusive. And by artists, I'm talking like literal, actual artists, painters, sculptors, etc., whatever. And then musical artists as well. Like, I totally understand the NFT thing part of it. Like, that having an NFT as, if you have content and you want to develop, I mean, LaMelo Ball is one who really did well with his NFT launch. Obviously, we've seen the success of NBA Top Shot as well. Like, I understand that part of it. Even if I don't fully understand the appeal of it, I understand what the greater market is, and I understand why people would be interested in that. That's not the weird part to me. It's just, so did you see Andre Drummond's comments then about the 90s and how he wishes he could play in the 90s? And so
No.
immediately, like, I saw that headline, and I was like, well, yeah, of course. Andre Drummond's game, like, that's kind of the sad part about it is that, yeah, I think if Andre Drummond played in the early 2000s or the 90s, he would have dominated. Like, he's got a skill set for that type of, for those rules, for that slower game, for, he's got a more old school type game. He's not one of these new age centers who's obviously going to stretch the floor and get out and handle the ball a little bit, even sometimes. Like, Andre Drummond is just kind of an old relic of a fading game, unfortunately, given the way the league is going at this point. But Andre Drummond didn't say that. Like, if he had said that, I would have said, okay, that makes sense. Like, but his game is more tailored to the 90s. Honestly, I get it. No, instead he said he wanted to play in the 90s because people would fight back then. And it's like, Andre Drummond, like, what are you doing, man? Like, really,
Well,
you want to go back and fight back then? Like, who are you going to fight right now?
by the way, I found his NFT collection, so I figure we can go through it.
Right.
Let's go through it here. Hold on, I want to adjust our screen, make sure we got the right. Here we go. Yep, that's what I'm looking for. So, Andre Drummond NFT collection. Here's the first one, the Showtime NFT. Co-designed a pair of basketball sneakers with Andre Drummond. I mean, flights and stuff like that. Tickets to 2 games next season. What team? You're not on the Lakers. If you're not on the Lakers, what team am I going to see at this point?
Some NBA team.
Co-designed, shoe autographed and gifted after the game. That's kind of dope. Digital copy of the high NFT resolution, which is this, by the way. I wonder if I can make this go full screen. Can I? Oh, yes, I can.
Oh, does that say farewell?
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's it.
Huh.
I think that's all it does.
I mean, listen, I get, like, all of that is cool, honestly. And I get, again, that's where I get, there's real life experiences with that as well. So I get, if you're an Andre Drummond fan, if you're an NBA fan, like, why you would be interested in that. Like, if he had just promoted that, that wouldn't be weird. It's everything else that's going on right now. Like I said, it's the Kareem Abdul-Drummond thing was weird, man.
Yeah.
It's just like coming off the playoffs, like, that's just not what I want to hear like that. It'd be like Ben Simmons coming out with the lineup right now, being, comparing himself to, it being like, I really am Magic Johnson. I'm Ben Showtime Simmons, and it's something ridiculous like that. Where it'd be like, it's just like, read the room, fam.
Yeah. So I don't know what this one is, the 203 NFT. Yeah, they all say farewell on it, which is interesting. I don't know if this one does anything different other than the background just kind of looks like you're driving down like Miami or something with those palm
it's
trees.
LA. LA's got the
yeah, LA. You're right. And then he's got this one, which is another confusing one. It's like a gold statue of him called the Decisions NFT. And if this one, you takes all knockout style NBA 2K tournament, so you get into a tournament.
Okay.
The winner of that tournament will be given the chance to discuss with Drummond his offseason career I can't even say it. Trajectory and plans for next season. So in theory, we should do this. We should start a GoFundMe to be able to buy this one so that we can get Drummond on the show to talk about his plans for next season. We can help him decide where he needs to go. And then you also get a digital high resolution copy of the Decision NFT, which is, I don't know if it moves. Oh, okay, he's got some gold stuff going on. It looks like it's a bottle of, what is that, Goldschlager?
Oh, yeah, it does. It does look like the leaves of a Goldschlager. It looks like the gold flakes. Oh, man. Yeah, no, that is great. That's so funny because I'm just picturing you and me sitting there talking about his career trajectory and being like, so Andre, let's talk about your career plans after LA. And just us with a flow chart of 4 teams that he could potentially go to. He's got 7 needs next year.
Oh, there's one more. The Golden Ticket NFT. This is the last one, it looks like. One of one exclusive NFT. Oh, this was one of it. Okay. Will be the grand prize in a free raffle set to be held July 15th. So what is that? What do I get out of that? Digital high-resolution copy of the Decision NFT.
Okay.
This is like the Decision. Like, okay, we got to stop saying the Decision because I keep thinking of LeBron's Decision.
It was the anniversary the other day of that too.
I know. Well, there you go. That's
That's
Drummond's
the most
NFT
same thing
stuff.
that Andre Drummond's done in the past week. Why just promote the NFTs, Andre? Like, stop comparing yourself to Kareem and stop saying you want to fight people. Get it? Like, go to the gym and motivate yourself. You got another contract coming up. Do something other. Do something other than talk about fighting people.
I'm gonna put my name in this. Gmail.
Oh, you just dropped me your email. You got
Yeah.
your Gmail is spelled wrong. It's spelled wrong. Don't do it. Don't click enter.
Good call.
You gotta
Good
switch
call.
M in your A.
We almost missed out on a chance of having Andre Drummond on the show.
You're gonna have mad spam on your email now too. Our listeners are just
100%.
they're gonna flood you, bro.
Thanks for submitting. There we go. Listen, I might win the golden ticket NFT. Okay.
No, I'm rooting. No, listen, I genuinely am rooting for you. I hope you win this golden ticket NFT. Like, I'm all about it. If we get to first time exclusive on the Driving Dish NBA podcast, just where Andre Drummond is going next, that'd be pretty crazy. I wonder what kind of deal he gets. Genuinely, like, I think it's going to be closer to the minimum. Now, here's the thing: Andre Drummond's already got a couple big deals, so it's not like he's missing out on that payday. So that's good at least, but. It's just unfortunate. I mean, that playoff run was just not great. I mean, the fact that he became unplayable when he was lauded. Remember when he got signed as a big time acquisition? Like, this was the guy who was going to kind of re-energize the Lakers a little bit. They went out of their way to work him into the starting lineup, even at the risk of irritating Marc Gasol a little bit. And then, essentially went right back to Mark by the end of the season. They had to. They were just flat out a better basketball team with him than Andre Drummond. And so, he had games where he played well for the Lakers, but it did feel like they would have to force that a little bit. So I don't know. I'm interested. I mean, he's going to get a contract, obviously. I'm not suggesting like he's going to bounce out of the league or something ridiculous, but I don't think it's going to be for a lot, to be honest.
Well, and like, what teams do you think would actually be interested and need someone with, Andre Drummond's, skill set?
Oh man, that's the thing. Like, I genuinely don't know. No contenders I can think of off top, and I guess that's the problem. Is where it's like it didn't work on the Lakers. I don't think the Clippers need him.
Is it gonna? Yeah, is it gonna be like?
I don't think. I mean, is it a Nets situation? Does he go to Brooklyn? Like, but even with that, it's just like you have Nick Claxton.
Wasn't there some talk this year at one point that the Heat might have been interested in bringing him down there a little bit and having just like a few big men down there?
But you have Bam. That's the thing. Is like, and I feel like I can get a big man that fits better with Bam and probably on the same price as Andre Drummond and who won't have like the expectation. Like, Andre Drummond is, because he's been an all-star, because he's had success in this league, is going to probably demand more of your offense. And so that's the thing is like, unless you get him to committing to, and again, I do think Miami maybe has, I mean, Spo obviously has that type of respect where he could command that, has that championship pedigree.
Sure.
But, I mean, so do the Lakers. And I guess that's why I'm concerned a little bit, is like, that's a Lakers team that's just coming off winning the title last year. So,
yeah. Well, either way, if you are listening to the podcast side of things, we do have a YouTube channel. You can go there. I'll probably make a point to clip out specifically this talk where we were talking about Drummond's NFTs, because there's some good visuals on that. So you can find it on our YouTube page, which obviously we just started recently. So feel free to subscribe along.
Yeah, right on YouTube there. Welcome, everybody, to the Driving Dish NBA podcast. My name is Kevin Rayfuse. Joining me, as always, my co-host, Justin Kuzart.
F9 is the worst movie I've ever seen.
Wow, I feel like a lot of NBA Twitter loves the Fast movie. So
yeah,
I have no idea, but that's a take. I'm here for it.
Josh Hart.
Okay, Josh Hart. So I haven't seen F9.
Yeah.
Have you seen F9?
I've not. My buddies went and said it was awesome. They did say that it leaned more into the fact that they knew at this point it's us outrageousness. You know what I mean? Like they're leaning into that more, which is totally fine, which I could see why maybe people don't like it as much. But like, I'm all about leaning into the weirdness
What
of
are
it.
you expecting from a
Yeah.
Fast and the Furious movie? Like,
Right.
that's the thing, is where it's like I wanted to lean into outrageousness. Like, I'm not going. And now I will say this: Fast and Furious 5 or Fast Five, whatever. But the fifth one, the first one with The
Hmm.
Rock, that's a genuinely good action movie. Like, it's
Yeah.
really, really good, unironically. Like, not leaning on its ridiculous. Like, the plot is great. The scenes are like that one in particular is genuinely a good movie. But I mean, that's the thing with Fast and Furious. Like, I've seen a couple random ones. I haven't seen all of them, but yeah, I'm leaning into the ridiculousness. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
looking for this to be some Oscar-winning performance. I want to see ridiculous stuff. I mean, this movie, they were blasting Ludacris and Tyrese into space, like
Hmm.
that's with a car. Like, that's so ridiculous. They like pulled that. The Rock pulled down a helicopter with a chain in one of the movies. Like, it's ridiculous. It
Hmm.
cracks me up always with Fast and Furious, just because like the first one is a small time movie about them robbing trucks, and now apparently they're just saving Earth all the time, and it's just like,
They're
how did
literal
we get here?
superhumans now. Like,
Right?
they're all superhumans.
Like, I don't think that's what they were going for back in the day, but
Here's my hot take with movies in general,
mm-hmm.
and you probably won't agree with me, or maybe you will. But if I never go to a movie theater again, I'm kind of okay with it.
Oh yeah, so you're there because that's funny because like it'll have happened by the time this episode drops. But my girlfriend and I are going to see Black Widow tonight,
You are?
and
Okay.
yeah, and so we have the option of we could go to the theater or we
Yep.
have Disney Plus, so we could have rented it on Disney Plus for
I
30
would
bucks
do
or
that.
whatever.
Hmm.
And like I thought about it, but here's the thing: I mean, at least for two people, like I get it if you're a family, like that ended up could probably save you some more money, but like I do. I kind of miss the experience. Like I miss the big theater. I miss the popcorn with the crappy butter. Like
Yeah.
it's just I only go to the movies for certain movies. Like I'm not one of those people who went to the movies all the time. But I haven't been since I don't even know the last movie I saw before this. I mean, probably whatever the last Marvel movie that came
Sure.
out in theaters was, or it honestly might have been Star Wars Episode 9, which Jesus, I got to cleanse the palate if we're
I
gonna talk
I
about
didn't
movies
even
after that.
go.
But
I didn't even go. I haven't seen that one yet.
Episode 9,
I still haven't seen it. I'm a big Star
okay,
Wars
don't.
guy.
Yeah, don't watch Star
Yeah.
Wars Episode 9. I'm
That's what I've
telling
been
you,
told.
it is. Oh my god! All right, you want to talk about a fall? That's my permanent fallen. Like I'm a huge Star Wars fan. You know this. I don't know if this has ever been adequately. Like I could do a side Star Wars podcast. Like that's how much I'm into it. Episode 9 is one of, if not the worst movie I've ever seen. It was so insanely ridiculously bad, and it was one of those where I remember watching it and going, maybe if I think about it and dwell on it for a couple of days, like it'll get better. And no, the more I think about it, it just gets worse.
Do
Like
you
everything,
like
like there is no planet where Palpatine should have ever been coming back. The nothing paid off. Everything that they set up in Last Jedi and Force Awakens just totally got disregarded for just cheap throwaways. Like and it's crazy with Disney because Disney took over Star Wars, and I mean I liked 7, and I'm not a Last Jedi hater. I actually feel like I didn't mind it a little bit. It's not my favorite Star Wars movie, but I'm not one of those people that really hate that movie.
sure, sure.
But like Rise of Skywalker is terrible, but it's crazy because Disney so badly bricked that new 7, 8, 9 trilogy. But everything else has been amazing. The last season of Clone Wars was amazing. The first season of Bad Batch so far has been really good.
Yeah.
The two side movies, Rogue One and Solo, were both really, really good. Like Rogue One in particular, that's one of the best Star Wars movies ever made. I don't think anyone had any expectations for that when it came out. And so it's just wild. I mean, even Mandalorian obviously was great. Season 2 was absolutely phenomenal with the Mandalorian. And so it's just crazy how they've just nailed everything else. And then the one things that they really are like the big blockbuster moneymakers were just so terrible, largely. Like that
Yeah.
new trilogy. Like I'm at the point where I honestly wish they'd retcon episode 9. Like if there was a way for them to reshoot it and just forget it ever existed, like I'm down. Like if you could Justice League it, Snyder cut it, like
Snyder cut it.
I'm there. Snyder cut it, please, because nothing makes sense. But see, here's the thing, like. Though I will say the Snyder cut, I don't know how they pulled that off either. Because I was like, there's no way they're able to make a good movie out of that. And like they made it watchable, which is a lot more than you could say the first time.
Well, they did a lot more, like all the stuff that they cut out to make the movie shorter. It seemed like that was all character development stuff that we needed for certain characters in that show. So it was kind of a weird situation. But yes, I agree. Where it was like you watch the Snyder cut and you're like, it is long as hell.
Oh yeah,
and I
it felt like a
see
4-hour movie.
yeah, and I see the parts that they took out because I watched the original first, and I was like, you definitely needed the Snyder cut spots. Like you needed those scenes to kind of give you a little more backstory than you probably had, you know?
Yeah, it's wild. It's
Hmm.
interesting and how that's just kind of gonna go to the sideline now because they moved on from it and
Yeah.
never really like that's an interesting situation for sure. I'm not gonna lie, I wish they could do that with episode 9, but I don't know how you fix that plot. That plot's just a mess. Leave us a review on iTunes, good or bad. We will read them on the podcast. If you're not an Apple user, we are everywhere you can find a podcast: Stitcher, Google Play Store, Amazon Music, Spreaker, Player FM, TuneIn, Spotify, anywhere that has podcasts. We're there.
Yep. And like we said, reminding you about the YouTube page. Check it out. YouTube Drive-In Dish NBA.
And now a word from our sponsors.
So as of recording, we are 2-0 in the NBA Finals for the Suns. So congratulations to them, coming out pretty dominantly. The first two games, Giannis able to play. There was some concern on that and what was going on with his injury. The two injuries that have kind of happened since the finals have started, sad for obviously him and for us. Dario Saric tearing his ACL, which sucks, especially for somebody that I think it was like 2 minutes he played in the first game, and so it's like you totally suck to see that. But kind of the follow back to that was with him being out, you expected Cam Johnson, potentially Torrey Craig to see some more minutes, maybe Ayton getting some more minutes as well. And then in game 2, Torrey Craig hurting his knee, but Woj tweeting out earlier today that there's no structural damage. So he's going to be day to day. You'll see what ends up going on there. But to that, game 1 opens up and immediately they throw up a lob to Giannis to prove that he's 100% good to go, which is crazy. And I think that was kind of the story out of game 1 from the Bucks side is Giannis is good. I mean, he was doing things that made it look like he was fine. His knee wasn't, or his leg wasn't, struggling too much. But to that, it still wasn't enough for the Bucks to win. And here we are. Is it gonna be a sweep?
I don't know if I'm ready to go for a sweep. So we talked a little bit. The last time we recorded, it was right before Game 6, so the Bucks closed out the
Sure.
Hawks.
Yeah.
Really impressive efforts there from Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday and Brooke Lopez and the supporting cast. Like, that was a super impressive because I thought the Hawks, once Giannis got hurt, were going to swing that series and win. Like, I thought the Hawks were NBA
Sure.
Finals bound. Instead, the Bucks closed them out. Really gritty Game 5s and 6 wins. And so they go into this series, and my first reaction, like you said, was, holy crap, I can't believe Giannis is playing. Like,
Yeah.
I thought best case scenario, we get Giannis back game 3. And I thought it could maybe very well be a James Harden type situation where he's there, but he's not really there. You know what I mean? He's still recovering. Obviously, Giannis is a guy who, he needs his physicality. He needs his athleticism. There's a reason his nickname is the Greek Freak. Like, he's got to be 100% to me to beat a team that is already better than them. Like, even if they were at full strength, I thought the Suns were going to be the favorite in that series.
Sure.
And so because of that, they already were playing from behind in a way. So the fact that he was able to get out there, I mean, is just absolutely incredible to me. I mean, what a warrior. Like, you just can never question his heart. You never can question the just desire that he has there. The fact that he's risking it. So to that point, you get 19 points out of him in game 1. You end up losing by 13. The Phoenix crowd is really loud. You're on their home floor. Everybody just generally has an off game. The Bucks can't make jumpers. And honestly, they made it close late. Like, the Suns were largely controlling that game. The Bucks got it to single digits in the fourth quarter. They just never really had an answer. Like, the Suns always had a counterpunch, but you're like, okay, I can live with that. It's not a big deal. We got to go out. We got to win game 2.
Sure.
The Bucks have lost every game 1 of every series they've been in so far, leading to this point, except for the Miami series. So, I think Pat Connaughton made a joke about that. So it's like, okay, whatever. You got to win game 2. Game 2 to me is where it's just a heartbreaker. You go out, you've got Giannis, like I said, on this hyperextended knee. It's a miracle that he's playing. He gives you 40 minutes and goes for 42 points and 12 rebounds, and you still lose that game by 10 points. Chris Middleton only gives you 11. He's 5 of 16. Drew Holiday gives you 17, but it's on a really inefficient 7 for 21.
Mm-hmm.
Brooke Lopez only has 8. I mean, Pat Connaughton, by far, I thought, in my opinion, was their best player in that second game. That shouldn't be a sentence that I'm saying. And like, I know they missed Dante DiVincenzo, but the reality is that Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday just flat out weren't good enough in game 2. They were more than good enough, and for all the credits, like we said, getting them here, they straight up have to be better if the Bucks are going to have any chance. And I think if you're the Bucks, you are looking at it as a massively missed opportunity. The only reason I'm optimistic a little bit is that I'm saying, hey, I'm going back home. We win game 3, we win game 4, and all of a sudden this is a tied up series. Like, we saw how raucous that Phoenix crowd is. Our crowd is going to be like that too. Obviously, with the Bucks having been to the finals since the 70s, like, they're waiting for their moment as well, the way that these Phoenix fans are waiting for their moment. You know, first time in the finals for them since '93 with Barkley. But I just, it's tough for me to see this. Just every time Milwaukee gets going, Phoenix has a counterpunch. And that's just been what has impressed me the most about this Phoenix team is, like, we know this team is good. We know they've got depth. We know they have plenty of guys that have given them key minutes. We know their stars can get it done. Like, you can just count on Chris Paul and Devin Booker and even DeAndre Ayton with his efficiency to be so dependable. But their mental fortitude and their toughness is what impresses me the most, because anytime it gets to a close game, anytime the Bucks go on a run, it gets to, you know, a 6-point game, the Bucks take a lead, like, the Suns just always come back out of that timeout, hit a bucket, like, just go on a little run of their own and just keep it a distance. They never allow it to be close. They never allow for weird, wonky things to happen. Like, they just completely control the tempo and the pace of the game. And that I think, as much as I hate to say it, because I want this to be a long 7-game series, my prediction before this started was Suns in 6. But I did say, you know, no offense to Milwaukee, but I thought there was a better chance of the Suns sweeping than the Bucks winning this series. And I would have revised that had I known Giannis was going to be as healthy as he is. Like, I do think I probably would have said it's more of a 6 or 7 game series, but I don't know. Like, I think the Bucks are going to win one at home. I do think they'll get that boost from the home crowd. I don't think Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday are going to miss every jumper forever. Like, as we've seen, especially with Middleton, that he's a much better player at home. So I think if you get another, just, you don't need 42 points, but if you're getting another 30-point game out of Giannis, again, your supporting cast is playing well, that they'll step up and they'll be fine. I don't think this is going to be a sweep. This is a Suns and 4 type situation. But I do think this Phoenix team is a lot better than Milwaukee. I think if you're Phoenix, you're just looking at it where, hey, we go and split these games and then we can go win on our home court. And that's probably where I'm at right now. Like, I think the Suns probably wrap this thing up in 5 at the absolute latest. And Phoenix celebrates their first title in franchise history.
Well, and, you know, and to that, I was looking at game 1 and we were like, you know, the difference in free throw attempts in general was just outrageous. Like, it was crazy how many more free throws the Suns were taking and making than the Bucks, which is another whole storyline with Giannis and the free throws, which is, you know, the crowd chanting and counting, which I think is hilarious. And, you know, I was talking with some buddies. I was like, they really should do it. Like, they should change it up based on the player they're targeting. Like, for Giannis, count in Greek, or, you know, like do like Mississippi's or 1,000, 2, like, really get in their head where it's like, you know, it's not so just yelling out the number and changing it up for each person. I think it would get in their head a little bit more, but I guess it's, you know, it's working. But to that, in game 2, if I can find it, in game 2, the Bucks ended up having a decent amount. They were 23 attempts. They made 15, so they shot 65% from field goal. But to that, again, the Suns had way less than you know, game 1. They only had 14, but they made 12 of them. So it's like, they just, like, that's a big part where I'm like, you just got to be more efficient at the line, man. You got to be, you know, if you're shooting that 80%, you know, 80%, you're making a lot more, and that makes things closer. And then it's, you know, closer to a 50-50 ball game in a way, or you're at least keeping the pressure on for longer. Like, it would just make more sense. But like you were saying, you know, the guys that have really been getting them there, Giannis, Brooke Lopez, Chris Middleton, Drew Holiday, have really gone cold, especially from 3. which is really hurting the team. I mean, Drew Holiday 33% last game, Chris Middleton, like you were referencing, 16%, and Giannis 20% from three. We don't expect him to be crazy good, but as a team, they shot 29% from 3-point range, and then you got the Suns coming out dropping 23s in the game, shooting 50%. They took 43s in that game, and it's like, the Suns are just way more efficient and hitting at a better clip and, exposing situations, which is why, you almost want to get into the Bucks coaching situation. Because a big problem they were having in game one is anytime Lopez would switch onto Booker or Chris Paul or anything, like they were just exposing the hell out of him.
Mm-hmm.
If I remember correct, there was a play in the first game where Chris Paul came down, and I think Brook Lopez ended up getting a flagrant because he landed like Lopez was where Chris Paul was landing, right? And so he got a flagrant for it. But right as that happened, I think it was a few minutes into the third, it was like 20 points scored on Lopez in situations where either was like switched onto or ISO'd. And it's like, so what are you going to do? How are you going to fix that in game two? And I haven't been able to, drill down deep enough to find how it was ISO'd against Lopez if they revisited that. But it's like, from a coaching standpoint, you got to figure something out, and you got to not let that keep happening,
Well, it's funny because, I mean, Budenholzer has rightfully at a lot of times gotten criticism over his lack of adjustments. I thought the Bucks adjusted pretty well in game two, given to what they saw in game one. Like, taking a look at their defense, like, I don't really necessarily think the Bucks played that bad. I don't think they were coached poorly. I just think they didn't hit shots. Like, that's the reality. Is like sometimes it's a make or miss league. And like you said, Phoenix is hitting their shots. Denver, Milwaukee is not. If there's a crowd that next year when Giannis goes to the line chants 1 through 10 in Greek, or starts counting in Greek in unison, that is some all-time that would be one of the best crowds ever, because the collective learning that would take place there for thousands of people to chant Greek in the U.S. would be absolutely incredible. Going back to the injury point, I mean, obviously that sucks, number one, for Dario Saric because of next year as well. Like, he's going to largely miss a pretty big portion of that, you would imagine, if he plays at all. Obviously, Homer hat on. We still love Dario, process legend. So it's disappointing when he gets to play some meaningful minutes that he won't get to.
It is almost, and I hate saying it, but it's almost fitting in a way for Sixers fans that the one thing we were able to hold on to this season gets taken away.
No, it's fitting for Sixers fans that we get a constant, that there's somehow always a painful element, because we just are getting a constant reminder, especially in game two, of how insanely dumb the Mikal Bridges trade was. I remember it being insanely dumb that night. It was insanely dumb in year one. It was insanely dumb in year two. And you're just sitting here looking and you're just going, what? Like, imagine if he was on the Sixers roster. It was an all-time blunder that doesn't really probably get talked about enough in terms of just the continued series of blunders that the Sixers made in between Hinkie and Morey. But I mean, I'm glad for Torrey Craig, at least in the sense that, nothing is torn there. Again, that's huge news for the Suns. Like you said, he was going to get a lot of Sarge's minutes. They may have to lean on Frank Kaminsky, I think, a little more than they'd like. But, maybe we'll get Torrey Craig back before this is over. But like you said, I mean, Chris Paul is just on a mission. Devin Booker, just at the end of the day, the dude gets buckets. Like, even when it's not falling, he seems to find a way to get a bucket at a clutch time. I think they're rolling. I think this series is over in 5 games. Like, I think by the time that we're recording this episode, there's a large chance we're recapping how Phoenix did this.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I think Jay Crowder is another one that people are going to give a lot of props to as well on the Suns. Now,
his stat line in game one was hilarious. So he had 0 points, but he was like plus 18 or something like that.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and even in game two, I'm looking at it right now. I mean, 10 rebounds, and I wanted to see how many points he had. So 10 rebounds, 11 points. Like, it's not like these crazy flashy numbers, but they're important numbers. Like he's a big part of the heart and soul that is the Suns. Definitely is, at least from like a bird's eye view watching them. But so who would you then, like, I know the storyline's going to be Chris Paul's first one. He's older. It was like his last shot at it. Devin Booker's obviously the main scoring threat, or usually the main scoring threat. Um, who do you think, if we get there, do you think they give Finals MVP to Chris Paul?
I think so, depending how these games play out. I mean, if Devin Booker goes insane the last
Sure.
couple of games, but yeah, I think Chris Paul is going for Finals MVP. I get a feeling that the game they clinch is going to be something special. It just feels like it's been leading towards that. That's my early pick. Obviously, if the Bucks flip it around, I think it'd be Giannis.
Right.
I think that maybe, I mean, DeAndre Ayton's the obvious sleeper, but I think Chris Paul is going to end up winning this. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I saw an article saying that Booker and his efficiency in scoring is putting him in the conversation for that potential Finals MVP. Which obviously, if you were to, I bet if you looked at Vegas odds, it's between those two right now, at least for the most popular pick. But
Definitely.
within, I don't know if it should be considered, but I think a big part of it would be like, yeah, this might, depending on Chris Paul's age, like he's getting up there. So this would, Booker in theory is going to have a lot more shots at winning a Finals MVP, hopefully.
Yeah, Chris Paul recognizes the opportunity that he's been given this year.
Sure.
Like that the seas have parted. Like this is the best chance he's ever had to win a title. I think he's going to win a title. I think he knows the historical impact it would have. I mean, it's the ultimate icing. It would be the player that comes to mind. I don't remember if I made this comparison on this podcast last week or on my appearance. Shout out Sam Albuquerque. Listen to Tuesday's episode of Take a Left at Albuquerque podcast. We were talking a little bit of finals on there as well. But it reminds me of Dirk. It reminds me of Dirk in 2011, where it's just the ultimate icing on the cake. He was already a first ballot Hall of Famer no matter what. He's already one of the best the game's ever seen. This is the ultimate ending. It's the type of ending that, a lot of stories in sports don't always get that storybook ending.
Sure.
This is the ultimate storybook ending for Chris Paul. Everything after this is just house money at that point.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I wonder, I saw people making the comparison. It was like a meme saying that Chris Paul was able to do this with, quote unquote, his young core. He was able to rally the young core together and train them and teach them to go the way that they need to.
Yeah.
And then the counter was, and the whole point of the post was to poke fun at LeBron for getting all the young guys traded out of LA. Do you think LeBron would have been able to do something like this with, and I get it, it's different positions and stuff like that, but if he had kept Lonzo and Ingram, like all the guys that essentially got traded for Anthony Davis?
I mean, are any of those guys as good as Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton? I think right now the answer is no. Like that's the thing. The Suns' core is younger for sure.
Ingram has grown greatly.
Oh, Ingram is great.
Yeah,
no, Brandon Ingram is great. That's not a slight of Brandon Ingram at all. I really like Brandon Ingram a lot. Like I think he's going to have a long, successful, multiple All-Star appearance future in this league. But I mean, in 2016, Kyrie was still young. I would have considered him a young player. Like he reminds me of the position that Book was in at the time. I mean, I guess Kevin Love wasn't as young as DeAndre Ayton was, but I just think it's a silly comparison. Like it's just kind of like the what are we doing here type deal.
I think it's one of those things where they're trying to point out how great Chris Paul's leadership is. I also saw someone else post say, imagine if this Chris Paul at this age is doing this well. Imagine if he had gone to the Lakers with Kobe Bryant and been able to make, potential runs.
Oh, see that's the greater what if is where it's like, yeah, of course. I mean, if you had added Chris Paul to that 2011 Lakers team and you had been able to prolong that Kobe Pau Gasol run, I mean, that would have changed everything. I mean, I think post Achilles is really when, it ended for that Lakers run. But realistically, after 2011, the year they lost to the Mavericks, like that was just kind of the end of those teams. They won the 2 titles, so obviously a massive success no matter what. But I mean, it could have given that shot in the arm to keep that run going for a little bit, where it's just, Kobe got older, Kobe got injured, Pau Gasol got older, Andrew Bynum ended up just getting hurt and then leaving. And so, I think that definitely would have been, I mean, that's a major what if. That will always be a big time what if in terms of his potential ring count. They're both leaders, though. And that's kind of the thing is like, I just don't, the Chris Paul LeBron comparison in that regard, I just think it's people looking to find ways to
Start.
disparage LeBron, but both
Mhm.
of these things can be true. Like Chris Paul's leadership is a mac. Like DeAndre Ayton has spoken extensively about what Chris Paul's leadership has done for the team. It's done for the young guys, and it's done for him specifically. I mean, look at what he's done for his stock this year. Look at how much more money he's going to make. Look at how efficient he's been. Like, this is what the Suns imagined when they took Ayton as a number one overall pick, where it's like before this, like, I don't want to say Ayton's been a disappointment because I think he got suspended. Like, I just think there were a couple of things that maybe were false starts. But I think when you were looking at Luka, when you were looking at Trae Young, when you're even looking at some of the other guys from that draft, you're going, well, yeah, that's a little bit of a bummer right now, given how he's turned out. Where now you're just like, yeah, we're pretty happy with that. Like, here's the thing. Michael Jordan was taken number 3, but no one ever kills the Rockets when they took Hakeem Olajuwon at number 1 because he was a Hall of Famer and he was an excellent player in his own right and won multiple championships. Like, obviously, I don't want to jump that far off the cliff yet with that draft. Like, that's just an all-time situation. It's the ultimate example of that. But you can live like. I think every team will regret not drafting Luka, but Phoenix is probably about to win a title, and DeAndre Ayton was a big part of that. I don't think it's that big of a regret. It's only a regret if you missed on that pick. Sacramento, which we'll get into a little bit. Actually, a preview coming up right now that actually transitions us pretty well into who's balling, who's fallen, our NBA version of the stock market. We always like start with the good for the bad. So Ballin for me this week is the obvious one. We talked about this last week. It was the easy first decision for the Atlanta Hawks to make this offseason, and that's removing the interim tag from Nate McMillan, giving him a 4-year deal officially as the Hawks head coach. I think it goes without saying the Hawks massively overachieving, reaching the Eastern Conference Finals, pushing the Bucks to 6 games. What a job Nate McMillan did. The team immediately turned the corner once he got put in that slot, taken over for Lloyd Pierce. Well-deserved and an easy decision for the Hawks.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone was making the joke, why haven't they done it already, And I kind of agree with them, but, it was one of those things. It's like, I don't think you do that in the middle of a playoff run. But either way, it's done. It's good. That's the way it should be. If they had gone with anybody else, it would have been Twitter would have lost it, right?
Yeah, it should have been the interim tag should have been off after they beat the Knicks. He should have bought a house after they beat the Sixers. So
he would have known. He'd know. Yeah, you don't not like. I can't imagine a situation where they go with anybody else. That would be absolutely wild. Do you think, by the way, and I know we're in Ballin and Fallen, but do you think maybe the Bucks move away and go with a new coach?
No, not because they made the finals. Like, it would have to be really, really egregious. And I know there's people that will call for it, and I don't necessarily think they're wrong. But I think they would have had to flame out in the second round again for them to just drastically pull that lever and pull that decision and pull that trigger. I think with him going to the conference finals, with eking out Brooklyn, with winning that series against Atlanta without Giannis, no, I don't think they're going to fire Budenholzer.
Okay. My 2 Ballins go. Actually, I have a few little stat lines here that I think is kind of cool to bring up. DeAndre Ayton, the first player to record at least 15 points and 15 rebounds in an NBA Finals debut. The first player to do it since Timmy Duncan back in 1999. So shout out to DeAndre Ayton for that one. Chris Paul, still crazy that he did his first finals debut at his age, but he's the first player with 30 points and 8 assists in a final since Jordan back the year I was born in 1991.
There you go. Wow. Okay. Yeah, I mean, anytime you're in the Jordan comparison, I don't think there's going to be any arguments there.
Yeah, and also on top of that, between Chris Paul, Devin Booker, and Mikal Bridges are all averaging over 20-plus points so far this series, which is just crazy. They're the 4th trio to do that over the last 30 years, at least average 20 points through the first 2 games. So obviously the Suns are just literally red hot, for lack of a better pun. And they're just rolling. And honestly, if they win Game 3, I'm convinced they're if they
might sweep if they win Game 3.
If they win Game 3, I know it wouldn't be in Phoenix because they'd be doing 2 games in Milwaukee, but I could see this sweep potentially.
I could too. I think they may, in a way, as crazy as this sounds, because you never want to play with your food. I think that if they win Game 3, I could see them losing Game 4 just to win Game 5 in Phoenix.
I get it, but I don't know. Is that
I mean,
Is
that's what people
that?
just think the Lightning did in the Stanley
Oh,
Cup. The
that's what
Lightning
I
were up,
mean.
yeah, the
I
Lightning were
was
up three
thinking
nothing
that.
on the Canadians, and then they lost everyone. I mean, even the mayor of Tampa came out and just straight up said, "Hey, you guys should lose Game 4 so we win on our home ice." Again, especially in hockey, because hockey's way more unpredictable than
Sure.
basketball. Like, you never should play with your food like that. But here's the reality: Montreal won Game 4 in overtime. They prolonged the series, and then Tampa did win Game 5 on their home ice. They closed the series out. They handled their business. They were the better team than Montreal, kind of the way I think that Phoenix is the better team than Milwaukee. Like, I don't think you should play with your food, but I get it. I could see
Is
that happening. Like, I also could see them sweeping too if they win Game 3 as well. So
do we think that that kind of mindset and conversation is more like fan slash media driven, and the
of
players don't
course.
necessarily think about that?
Well, I think players are trying to close it out, like, because at the
Right.
end of the day, like, they want to close this out because it's a game where it's one less game for them to potentially get injured, like it's
Sure.
one potential less game for things to go wrong, like, and you just can go on vacation earlier too, like your job's over for a little bit, then you take some time off, and if you're the Suns, you can start to celebrate, like,
Yeah.
really, you guys are gonna have the best summer ever.
Yeah, pretty much. So all right. Well, I just wondering, it was a thought that I had, but either
Yeah.
way.
All
So,
right. So fallen for me this week is Marvin Bagley and the Sacramento Kings future. Um, so there was a tweet. Complex Sports had tweeted a quote from DeAndre Ayton that he said he thinks the 2018 NBA draft class is the best in history. And so it's a
I saw
picture of
that.
him, Marvin Bagley, Trey Young, and Luca next to Adam Silver, and which obviously really, really good. That top three is definitely insane. It looks to be one of the better drafts
Sure.
already,
Yeah.
and we still have plenty of years with these guys to come. So somebody tweeted and said, we got to get at MB35, which is Marvin Bagley on Twitter, out of Sacramento, man, with the crying face emoji. And so he liked that tweet.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, there's been things with his dad in the past on Twitter talking about Sacramento and having to get him out of there, which, parents say things sometimes. That's not the first time we've seen that happen in the NBA. But so Bagley liked that tweet. And then on a podcast, doubled down when he was asked about it and said, "That's my Twitter, bro. It's my Twitter. It has my name on it. I can like whatever I choose and please, whatever I feel like liking." That's not good.
Do we think he has some NFTs coming out soon?
Oh my God.
I mean, honestly, do we know? Are we
uh,
sure? Should we check on
he
that?
might. I mean,
Some
yeah.
some secure the Bagley NFTs, dude. I'm telling you.
Oh my God. Look, and the crazy part is we haven't even mentioned Jaren Jackson, who got drafted at number 4 as well, who has obviously shown plenty of promise with Memphis. Um, Listen, I get it. I get why he's frustrated. I get that Sacramento, I think it goes without saying, hasn't exactly been the best run
Mm-mm.
organization. But it's also like, Marvin, you're a part of the reason as well here, guy. Like, it's
Mm-hmm.
not just on Sacramento. Like, none of these guys all necessarily. I mean, DeAndre Ayton, Phoenix. I know Phoenix is about to win the title, but it's not like Phoenix has necessarily been known as a hotbed of development here in the past few years either. Um,
They
you
should
haven't.
now at this point, right? Like we should probably
Well, it's
that's
different.
got to change at this point.
Well, it's tough because I agree and I don't, because in ways it has, in ways it hasn't. Like, the Suns bricked a lot of draft picks to get
Sure.
here, but they hit on a couple of big ones. I mean, Booker, they got Booker at 9.
Yeah.
Like, Booker, or no, they got Booker at 11. I think actually
Devin Booker. Hold on now.
he might have been. Wait a minute, he might have been 13. I know I keep punting this down a little bit. What pick was Devin Booker? Devin Booker might.
He was the 13th pick in the
Yeah, Devin Booker
2015.
was
Yep.
13. So, like, that's one of those things where it's like, well, yeah, obviously you nailed that one, and,
Yeah.
and you get all the credit in the world for that. I think Chris Paul is a little bit of that as well. I think he adds the
Sure.
instant legitimacy to everywhere he goes. I don't think it matters good franchise, bad franchise.
I mean, we saw
but
what he did. Yeah, in OKC even
I,
last year was impressive with
the
what
point is, like,
was
here's the
happening.
like. I guess here's my point. I still think Marvin Bagley's got a lot of potential. I definitely don't think Sacramento is great at development and has necessarily been great for his career. I also don't think Marvin Bagley's been that good either. So it's one of those things where it's kind of like, yeah, Marvin, I don't really want to see you put yourself in that conversation with DeAndre and with Luca and with Trey Young, because they've all proved things and you haven't. Like
Would you
there have been expectations in Sacramento in the past couple of years, and they still haven't made the playoffs. Like that is worth mentioning.
would you consider? I feel like I saw this somewhere, and if I'm Ben Simmons, I'm immediately in the gym shooting and trying to show the Sixers that I don't want to go there or that I'm ready to stay and learn. But would you consider maybe a Bagley, De'Aaron Fox, Ben Simmons centered trade?
I don't want Bagley. I want Buddy Hield, but I would definitely consider it. Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
I don't think De'Aaron Fox and Joel Embiid are the best fit in the world. That was kind of my fear when he was, in play for a draft pick a little bit. But here's the thing: I don't think it matters. I think if that one thing in the NBA is shown, it's this is an acquired talent league, and you figure it out. Like I definitely think a De'Aaron Fox with 3 shooters and Joel Embiid lineup could work. Like I think De'Aaron Fox is just incredible at attacking. I don't know if the spacing is there, but I think that they both can, obviously get to the rack at pretty much at will. So it would be, I would certainly consider it. Like, I don't think it would be my number one pipe dream situation if I'm going to trade Ben Simmons for the Sixers, but I don't hate that deal. Obviously, Buddy Hield, if nothing else, can shoot the basketball, which is something the Sixers need. So I would certainly weigh it. And if I'm Ben Simmons, I can't say I want to go there either, though he'll get to, we'll see what he'd certainly get to captain his own team then, essentially.
Yeah. All right. Well, my fallen is actually going to be a video, and it's from Channel 6 up in Philly.
Okay.
I only saw this because literally we're from there, so I follow.
Dun, 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 dun. Most iconic news jingle of all time.
Yes. Well, here is they're talking to Mikal Bridges' mom.
Oh no! Don't do this to
so nice. He must apologize to me like a gazillion times, and he did call me. He said, "I just wanted to apologize again." But no hard feelings. I love Brett. He's a good guy. He's so nice. He must apologize to me like a gazillion times, and he did call me. He said, "I just wanted to apologize again." But no hard feelings. I love Brett. He's a good guy.
So she's essentially talking about if you couldn't understand it there, she's essentially talking about the trade that happened with Bridges and that Brett Brown had called her because she worked for the. I don't know if she still does, but she worked. She
did at the time when he got drafted because they were interviewing her. It was the ultimate homecoming story.
Yeah.
I hate it here, Justin. I hate it here so much.
I had to circle it back, man. I had to bring us to it. We had to, man. My other falling, by the way, was going to be Steven Adams, who apparently is working on his 3-point shot. I don't know if you saw that video going around. He's in the gym working on a 3. And I'm like, cool, you can hit 3-pointers in a quiet gym with no one guarding you. Let's see it in a game before I believe anything.
This is such an unnecessary stray Steven Adams. Like, at least he's working on the game. Like, I know it's an empty gym, but what do you want him to do?
You're getting soft because Ben Simmons hasn't shown that. You're getting soft that you're just happy to see anybody doing it.
I watched the whole offseason of Ben Simmons do that last year, and then him not doing it.
I
don't want to see any Ben Simmons videos. I want to see Ben Simmons shooting free throws. That's what I want to see Ben Simmons
And that's
doing.
why Ben Simmons last year with all the video we saw, and was it the preseason where he came out and hit a 3 and everyone freaked out? Is like, I saw it, and now I know not to believe it. So Adams, I'm not going to believe it until we're 20 games into the season and you're shooting 40% from 3.
Are we expecting that? Like, I feel like we're having irrational, unfair expectations of Steven Adams right now.
No, well, listen, that's what I want now. If you're gonna come out with a hype video, here, I'll actually pull it up. If you're gonna come out with a hype video of you shooting 3s, let me see if I can connect it real quick. Of you shooting 3s, then I want I expect some improvement. I expect a wide range that shows you're confident in yourself and the progress you've made with the 3. Well, see, we get a dunk first, and then he's running over. There's the 3. Oh, a fake. I think that actually might have been a. There's your 3. Boom. Look at that. 2 in a row. See, 40% from 3 is now my expectation.
I mean, he didn't post this. This is his shooting coach and his coaches posted this. I'm fine with this. It's off-season workout footage. Steven Adams is working on his game. I don't fault the players for putting those videos out. I fault the players when they put them out and there's a blatant propaganda machine behind it, and then it doesn't deliver. I don't think
Sure.
Steven Adams is out here saying that I'm going to be in the 3-point contest next year. I think he's saying that, hey, I can continue to adapt with modern NBA basketball and continue the next portion of his career, and the second half really as he gets older. Again, Ben Simmons had a whole hype machine where this was going to be the year and it was going to break out, and instead we saw it fail on the ultimate stage. So it's like, no, it's about reading the room and it's about expectations. And God, I'm so that Mikal Bridges trade, man. Just get your coach, get your truck, and run me over. All right, USA basketball. The Olympics are coming up. It's going to be like the bubble again because there's no fans apparently.
Well, and to that, by the way, I was just going to point out, this came out a few days ago, is that Emmanuel Quickly, Miles Bridges, and PJ Washington are out of training camp for it because of COVID-19 protocols.
Yeah, so, I mean, I got to be honest, I'm a little worried about this being a global super spreader event. With the Delta variant going around, there's no fans. They declared a state of emergency already. Here in the U.S., we're lucky. You've been vaccinated. I've been vaccinated. They're pretty readily available if you want them at this point. Like if you want the vaccine, you're able to go get it. It's not like it was early on where it was just, trying to be one of those first people to get it, trying to, get first in line. But yeah, still nevertheless, there are a couple places where the numbers are definitely going up fast. And so I think there are those concerns, but it will, from a style standpoint, go back to the bubble. We got no fans, but the roster is set. For anyone who hasn't seen it, I'm just going to run it down real quick in alphabetical order. Bam Adebayo, Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, Jeremy Grant, Draymond Green, Drew Holiday, Zach LaVine, Damian Lillard, Kevin Love, Chris Middleton, and Jason Tatum. Of course, the U.S. going for their 4th consecutive Olympic gold will be the favorites, even with some people saying that this is one of the weaker Olympic rosters in the years. Here's the thing. You got Kevin Durant on the roster. Like Greg Popovich talked about this a little bit. Like that's already the biggest victory you can ask for. No, it's like you've got the best player on the planet suiting up for, the USA basketball squad. He's already got 2 golds, so there wasn't a guarantee that he was going to want to play this year, coming off the playoff run, coming off the injuries, of course, from the past couple of years. Just having him already is a coup. Like that to me, of course they're going to be the favorites. It's USA basketball, but, the fact that you've got him, there's going to be plenty of scoring there. You've got Draymond to play the more defensive role. This is a pretty good roster. Like for this being a down roster, you've got Dame Lillard on this roster, Booker's on this roster, Jason Tatum's on this roster. Like they've got Bam Adebayo to play more of a defensive role. The only question mark is the one that everybody keeps joking about is Kevin Love. It feels like Kevin Love hasn't played an organized basketball game in 4 years, and Kevin Love's on the Olympic team.
And we joke that he's doing that because he's trying to find his next team in the NBA. He's trying to set some seeds and see what teams might be interested and start talking to the players and getting that chemistry going,
Yeah.
So I like with we kind of Carlton and I kind of talked about this when the team was officially announced or most of it was announced. And I was like, with like Booker and some of the other guys, like, man, that is very little rest off a season where you already got very little rest, and but like, yikes, but again, like with the Booker, he's young, so you'd imagine he'd be fine, but it's still like, even with KD, like there hasn't been that much rest in terms of an offseason for him, jumping right back in. And KD, does have a little bit of injury concerns, and the Nets in general have dealt with a lot of injuries this year. So you wonder about that a little bit. But should be easily the favorites, and we'll see where it goes. But
there's experience on the roster too. KD and Kevin Love both have 2 gold. And that's the argument for Kevin Love is that he's been a staple on this team. Durant and Love were on the 2012 squad. Durant, Love, and Draymond Green were on the 2016 squad. And even Chris Middleton and Jason Tatum were on the team in 2019 that won the World Cup. They should be rolling. The only USA basketball team that should roll more than the men is the women, because you look at the women and it's just like, oh my God, this is like a Death Star lineup. But yeah, it should be. I'm excited to watch it. I'm excited KD's playing. It's definitely going to be weird with the bubble, but like we said, they've got a good squad. I don't think this is going to be like a 2004 situation where disaster looms. Like, they'll fit well together. They've got a good mix of offense and defense. I think the only gripe, if you have one, is that Carmelo's not on the squad. I think Carmelo Anthony is a USA Olympic legend as well. So, maybe off his legendary status, you would like to see him here. But no, it's exciting times for USA basketball. Excited to watch them. We'll see what the Olympics do coming up. Thank you, everybody, for listening to this episode of the Drive and Dish NBA podcast. Appreciate you guys as always. We'll be back next week with continued coverage of the finals. Promise we're going to get into some draft eventually, too. A whole lot of prospect talk coming soon. And, of course, like we said, we'll actually start talking some of these Olympic games a little bit as well. Kind of helps with the summer transition here. A little bit shorter of a summer than usual, obviously, still given the weird schedule. But it will be a little more, normal, per se, as we than this time last year, where, remember when we had an episode about the horse contest?
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
Wow. That was a time. Those episodes will definitely be some of the most unforgettable we've ever recorded. Leave us a review on iTunes, good or bad. We'll read them on the podcast. Anywhere you can find a podcast: Apple, Stitcher, Player FM, Google Play Store, Spreaker, TuneIn, Spotify. You can find us.
Yep, and be sure to follow us on YouTube. You can subscribe. Just search Drive and Dish NBA.